So recently it seems like Amazon is restricting a lot more brands, or hard gating brands, or just gating more brands in general that you need to apply for, or even hitting a lot of new sellers with do not qualify, so you can't even apply to get ungated. And luckily for me, I have conversations with people every single day. My clients, people who want to become clients, even viewers who reach out to me on Instagram, and I can kind of see where the vibe is at, right? And right now the vibe is everything is gated, everything is restricted. I cannot sell anything. And it may seem that way, but guys, it's really not the case whatsoever. And I'm going to explain why that is in this video, but also explain to you exactly how you can completely get past that, where it becomes a non-issue. So we're going to get to that. But guys, when I started selling on Amazon in 2018, things were very similar to how they are right now, but there was less information and it was way harder to get ungated. So like arbitrage existed, but it wasn't at the scale like it is now. Like it wasn't to the amount of people that get into arbitrage and have great results. It was like, yeah, people do arbitrage, but it's nothing crazy. It was hard to get ungated even with distributor invoices. Like even with authorized distributors of this brand, it was still difficult to get ungated. And so what ended up happening was that Amazon went through this leniency phase where like 2 years ago, maybe it started, maybe a little bit longer, where everything was so easy to get ungated. Like you could literally upload a picture of your cat or a blank piece of paper and you could get ungated. You could get ungated for major brands like Nike, Adidas, Lego, all of these things with email confirmations. It was no issue whatsoever. So what I've noticed was that over time, so as time went on and there was an abundance of sellers going into these different brands, Amazon started to get a little bit more tight, right? So they started to restrict these a little bit more, made it a little bit harder to get ungated. So where you could get ungated with email confirmations or packing slips or literally anything, well, now they wanted to see a little bit more proof, or they wanted to see an invoice, or they wanted you to really apply over and over and over again until you were actually able to get approved, right? So it just started getting a little bit harder to the point where now brands like Nike and Adidas are restricted, and Puma and all of these things, right? So a lot of people are getting the restriction or the do not qualify. One thing that you need to understand if you're going to be successful in the Amazon space is that you need to be able to acknowledge what's working, but also be able to carve your own path, which is what I think a lot of people fail to do. So let me explain. So how much attention do you think you give, or how much do people grasp your attention when you're coming into the space, when they're like, hey, you can sell Nike, look at all these shoes, and you can sell Adidas, you can sell all these major brands, Nintendo, you can sell Dove soap, you can sell all of these major brands that everybody knows already, right? It seems really cool, right? You're like, oh, well, I know what that is, and that looks cool. I'd rather be able to say that I sell Nikes than say that I sell toilet paper or paper towels or something, right? So because everybody talks about it in a marketing way to get your attention, what ends up happening is that so many people flock to that one space, right? Well, because there is an abundant amount of arbitrage sellers that go and they flock to one direction, it ends up getting Amazon's attention, right? Because where the majority of arbitrage sellers are going, there's usually going to be way more price tanking, because there's just so many sellers that are not as sophisticated on the platform. They haven't been on as long and they just desperately want to get in and get out. So there's going to be way more price tanking. There's going to be more listing issues with those specific listings. And even recently, not recently, but now it's been like a year, where people will go and even create generic listings, which means they're creating their own listing for this one product because they want to go and be able to get sales, right? And then unknowingly, a lot of new sellers will go and they'll jump on that generic listing thinking that it's the real thing. And then what ends up happening is that Amazon hits them all with the Section 3 for counterfeit. I need you to prove that these goods are legit because you're selling on this generic listing, right, that you created. So what ends up happening is that these brands, they get upset, or there's issues with the brand itself because of all of these things, prices getting dragged down, listing issues, all of these things, right? So then what ends up happening is that Amazon will then start to crack down on that specific space that there is an influx of arbitrage sellers or just inexperienced sellers who are just coming in and ruining it for everybody else, okay? We're seeing that with the shoe space right now. We've also seen that with the beauty category, and we're seeing it still. I've even seen that in the past with the toy category. The toy category in the past was the shoe category. A couple of years ago when I started, the toy space was the shoe space, right? It was so popular. Everybody wanted to be there, and people still do, but it was like that was what everybody talked about. Everybody talked about the toy space, right? So then there was a lot of cracking down in that space as well. So when I say that you need to be able to capitalize on, yes, what you see is working, but be able to create your own path, is that if you see every single person on earth talking about Amazon, and they're specifically talking about selling shoes or selling beauty or selling this or selling that, then yes, dip your toes in there and see what you can do and see if it's working, it will work for you as well. But don't be afraid to go into this other direction, because then if you put all of your eggs in this one basket that every single person is talking about, then when something happens in that space, you're going to have no direction to go. You're going to feel completely defeated, or you're going to come in with the expectation of this is the only space that has money to be made. And when you notice that you can't even sell that, you're going to feel defeated, right? So I'll give you an example. This is my favorite example. When I first started on Amazon, everybody and their mother was talking about the toy category. That Lego and all of the Mattel, Hasbro, all of those things, the toy category was the place to be. Well, I dipped my toes in the toy category, but I noticed, same thing that I noticed when I started selling Nike, was that, well, there's just so much competition there. It's a completely red ocean. And yeah, I can make money here and there, but I'm like, I'm getting so many tanked listings every time that I sell in this category. So what I ended up doing was, let me see if I have great relationships with these toy distributors. So let me see if there's anything else in the toy category that isn't selling as well, or not selling as well, if there isn't selling with as much competition, right? So then I got into board games, right? And board games were phenomenal with a fraction of the competition. So I started selling a lot of board games. Then I started looking into different categories, and one of the categories that literally nobody talked about, and there was only a handful of videos ever mentioning it whatsoever. And when they did mention it, they said there was no money to be made there, like this and that with the brands and all of these things, right? Was phone accessories. So I started looking into it for myself. I'm like, let me look in these phone accessories and see if there's any money to be made. And I made so much money in the phone accessories category. Like, it was ridiculous how fast I was able to grow once I dove into the phone category. Guys, I was buying things for $15 and I was selling them for $50 on Amazon, $60 on Amazon, like these higher end phone accessories. And I had maybe 4 competitors, and I was doing that for months and months and months at a time, to the point where I was spending all of my money with one supplier there. And then I couldn't restock fast enough because everything was just selling out, because it was a completely blue ocean. Nobody was talking about it. It wasn't on anybody's radar. And so nobody was even there. Like, it was barely anybody there, right? So there is massive benefit to seeing what's working, dipping your toes there, but then also being able to carve your own path that is not what everybody is talking about, because that is usually the blue oceans that have a lot of money to be made. And I get it, guys. It's so much more sexy to be like, hey, I want to sell Nike, than if I were to go, oh, I want to sell, Element or Aloha drink, all of these like super niche brands that you guys wouldn't even know, right? Everybody knows Nike. But that's a massive tip that I can give you guys. Those of you who listen to what I just said and actually take it to heart and implement, guys, you will do very well. Okay. If you look for the blue oceans, then there is so much money to be made because nobody else is looking there. Everybody's focused on Lego. Everybody's focused on shoes. Everybody's focused on beauty, right? So where is nobody else focusing on? A lot of times the products that I personally sell and I have always sold are products that not everybody's talking about. Definitely brands that not everybody even knows, and brands that I never even heard of before, right? So I'm looking into all of these other niches that, I may have used in the past, or maybe I just started doing research and I stumbled across it. But you need to be able to carve your own path in order to have longevity in this business. Because if you only go where everybody's talking about, you're dealing with the red ocean. You're dealing with so many sharks in the water who are going to be dragging this price down, and eventually there's going to be issues, right? This is my client Mark right here. So Mark went from 0 to 40K per month doing wholesale within 14 weeks. And he focused on that blue ocean strategy. So the blue ocean strategy of everybody's looking here, let me look over here. And he ended up finding a blue ocean within a red ocean. I won't give too much away because it would make it too obvious. But he did this exact same thing. So while everybody's dealing with all of these issues, it's like he's not dealing with them at all, right? So you need to be able to look for these blue oceans. But when it comes to gating and all of these things, guys, it's the exact same thing as when I started. The difference is that Amazon is still more lenient than they were back when I started. So it's not a problem to get ungated in these things. What ends up happening though, that you go to do product research, right? And everything appears to be gated. Or you go to do retail arbitrage and you're scanning everything and everything appears to be gated, right? Guys, I have said this before and I will say it again until every single person watching this takes it to heart and really understands what I'm saying. You need to focus on sales first and ungating second. As soon as you start getting some sales on your account and you're able to fulfill those orders and your customers are receiving those orders and there is no issues whatsoever, Amazon will start to get more lenient with your account and you'll be able to get ungated in so many other things. Now, I know some of you guys are gonna be like, well, how can I sell anything if I'm gated in everything? You're not gated in everything. You just have a limited amount of time that you have invested in product research and sourcing. So you think that you're gated in everything because with the little bit of amount of time that you've put in, you have been gated in certain things, right? Or you've been gated in a lot of things, but maybe you're going on page 1 of Amazon, you're just going down page 1 and seeing if there's anything that you can sell. And then you're running into Amazon's on everything, or everything's private label, or everything is gated. Guys, you just need to put in some more time with product sourcing and doing it properly. And as soon as you can start getting some sales in your account, things are going to open up so much easier. Look, I just recently interviewed my client, Taryn. Taryn posted to the group, his first month, I think they couldn't sell hardly anything. They were just gated in everything. As soon as they started making sales, like very soon after, so many things started getting ungated. So many more auto ungates were happening. Guys, this has been the case since I started. When you sell more, you will get auto ungated more. It will be easier for you to apply to get ungated and actually get approved. And a lot of those do not qualify, like you get those do not qualifies on your account, those are going to start getting lifted. Now, as far as the restrictions and the hard gating, Amazon tends to go back and forth on those. I don't know if maybe you sell for a certain amount of time or you sell a certain amount, that those things are going to be opened up or they're just going to close it down for everybody. I don't know. But as far as the majority of the products on Amazon are just simply gated or you need a auto approval, you're going to be able to do that as soon as you start selling. So Taryn, as soon as they started getting some sales, they noticed that the brands that they had applied in the past, if they would just try to apply for them again, they were getting auto approved just because they had a couple $1,000s in sales revenue. Okay, so you just need to get some more sales. Another one is Edwin. Edwin, I just recently interviewed him. Guys, these are two sellers who are starting just a couple of months ahead of you. They literally just started. Okay, so they're dealing with the exact same Amazon platform as you, which is why I'm using them as the best example. So Edwin went from 0 to his first 10K month within 5 weeks. He said the same thing. He said, yeah, things were gated. And then as soon as I started making more and more sales, then everything started to open up. And guys, this isn't like, hey, you need to go make $10, $15, $30, $50,000 in sales. This is just, you need to make some sales. You need to prove to Amazon that you are a legitimate seller. The reason that Amazon has implemented all of these gates and all of these things is because people will take a good opportunity, like when Amazon is lenient, right? And they will completely abuse it and then ruin it for everybody else. It has always happened, right? So when Amazon first started, before they had anything gated, you could literally go and sell whatever you wanted or not sell, right? So like what I mean by that is that people would go, they would list products FBM, people would pay them, the customers would order, they would get the money, they would be able to cash it out, and then they would never send any goods. So there was so many scam sellers and there's so much counterfeit, which is why they started to make all of these restrictions. Well, recently, people just completely abused the ungating process, uploading pictures of their cats, blank pieces of paper, whatever. And then there was also the issue where people are selling stolen goods. There's so many other suppliers that are just popping up out of nowhere, and some of them are selling people stolen goods, right? So that's a big problem. So all that Amazon is doing is, instead of being, this lenient, like back in 2018, they're about this lenient. Well, they were super fucking lenient recently, and now they're just kind of trying to hold on to the reins a little bit more and backstep a little bit farther. You can still apply to get Ungated, and it's relatively easy as soon as you start making some sales. Guys, you need to understand that if you're going to start this business, or you're going to start any business or anything about making money online, where you're making money on your own terms outside of your job, outside of the traditional way that we have always known about making money, there's going to be challenges. You're going to need to be resilient. You're going to need to be persistent. You're going to need to have the mentality of, I'm going to make this work no matter what. Taryn, Edwin, Davis, Nick, Mark, all of these people who I've interviewed on the channel, they didn't come into this business and they were like, I'm gated. Well, it was nice while it lasted. And then they left. Like, no, like they had the mentality of, they're going to make this work no matter what. You gotta realize that there's a difference from, I'm not going to quit and I'm going to handle this like a gangster and see it through, and I'm not going to quit, but I'm going to be all poopy pants throughout the process. Just because you don't quit doesn't guarantee that you're going to succeed. But if you have this mentality where you're going to make it work no matter what, even though these are just regular problems, it's like you're going to go a very, very long way. So guys, I understand that you may think that everything is restricted or everything is gated. And yeah, Amazon's kind of pulling the reins back a little bit, but it is nothing that we haven't seen before. Guys, Amazon FBA has the potential to completely change your life, but if you keep focusing on not being able to make it work on day one or week one, or you run into these little obstacles that are nothing new. This is nothing new. This is just, instead of being a 10 out of 10 easy for you to get Ungated, this is, now we're dealing with a 7 out of 10. This is nothing. You just need to build this skill that you're developing, but you need to do it consistently with a good attitude and have the right mindset around this, and you can actually make this fucking business work. Just like all of these people that I've shown you. I don't know how many more testimonials I have to show you. Like, this business is as legit as it gets. And it was the business that allowed me to quit my job, and it completely changed my life. Guys, I could still be at the sheriff's office right now, making $3,500 a month, living to work my job, getting called out on my on-call all the time, having mandatory overtime, getting pressured into overtime, showing up early, leaving late, all of these office politics that you would have to deal with, all of these things. And above all that, having to ask somebody else to take a day off is ridiculous to me now. But that's what I would be dealing with if I would have just listened to the complaints, or I wouldn't have believed in myself, or when I ran into these obstacles, I would have just quit on day one or the first week. Guys, you need to get out of your own way. But enough rambling for me. If you want to know how to get Ungated, I want you to watch this video right here. If you want one-on-one coaching, there's still a couple spots available down below. First link in the description, where we have helped hundreds and hundreds of people run this business and do it in record time. First link in the description. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next one.